I think you and I share something very special, but if it's not duplicatable, it could put us at risk. And there is something about that. Come on, there's something wonderful here, right here. Well, yeah, there is. Why wouldn't we put that at risk? Yeah, you're right. For anything other than a guarantee, and that's the only reason it's not possible. Why would we put that at risk? Anything other than in my brain, there's something I want maybe more than you do. Sit here in this moment with this truth we have. I couldn't find that with them anymore. Not even Janelle. The dinner conversation just surfaced, and it's completely shocking. Kody Brown, sitting right across from Robyn at what was supposed to be a private meal, just confessed on camera that his only reason for bringing in another wife would be sex and physical attraction. Not spiritual reasons, not expanding the family, not the plural marriage beliefs he's talked about for years, just sex and looks. From a 57-year-old man who's already left behind 3 wives and 13 children. The uncut footage shows Kody leaning over the table, using his usual smooth-talking tricks, while Robyn laughs awkwardly and calls him a pig. But here's what makes this talk so jaw-dropping. This isn't some private moment caught accidentally. This is a planned scene where both of them knew they were being filmed. Still, Kody decided to show exactly who he really is behind all that carefully built public persona. For years, Kody has been telling red carpet reporters that he's completely happy with just one wife. He's insisted that women have reached out to him, wanting him to change his ways first, brushing off any real interest in plural marriage. He's made himself look like the content monogamist who finally found his perfect match after the messy splits from Christine, Janelle, and Mary. But this dinner talk proves that story is total lies. What we're watching is a man falling apart, tired of his current life and desperately trying to feel young again through the only thing he gets: sexual wins and trophy wives. And Robyn, even after calling him a pig, is going along with the mind games, asking for promises about bringing another woman into their already messed up relationship. The timing of this bombshell couldn't be more obvious. Just when Sister Wives fans thought they figured out the Brown family drama, Kody shows his real reasons. This isn't about love, family, or faith. This is about a middle-aged man's sexual needs and his craving for constant attention from attractive women. The question every fan should be wondering is straightforward. How did things get this bad? And what does this mean for the woman sitting right there, laughing nervously, while her husband basically tells her she's not good enough anymore? Look back through years of Kody's public statements about monogamous happiness, and here we are, watching him chase the exact thing he said he didn't want anymore. The double standard is mind-blowing. This man spent whole seasons telling fans he was finished with plural marriage, that his connection with Robyn was so amazing and special that he couldn't picture needing anyone else. He presented himself as the changed polygamist who'd figured out that quality beats quantity. But the new season story shows something totally different. Behind closed doors, Kody has been talking to women online, actively chatting through emails and websites, basically hunting for wife number 5 while publicly acting like the loyal husband. The mental gymnastics would be funny if it weren't so planned out. Think about this dinner moment for a second. After years of telling America he's happy with one wife, Kody sits across from Robyn, the woman he's supposedly picked above everyone else, and casually mentions adding another woman to their marriage. Not because he's had some spiritual awakening about plural marriage, not because he feels meant to grow their family, but because, in his own words, he's worried about whether or not having one wife would be enough for him. This is where Kody's mind games become totally obvious. He set up a mental trap for Robyn, where she has to prove she's good enough while also accepting that she might not be. He's making her help plan her own replacement by calling it a talk about their relationship instead of admitting he's looking around. The whole thing is especially mean because Robyn has spent 15 years thinking she won the biggest prize. She was the fourth wife who became the only wife. She outlasted Christine's fighting back, Janelle's independence, and Mary's emotional walls. She played the game better than anyone, locking down her spot as the favorite, the chosen one, the wife worth keeping. But now, sitting at this dinner table, she's finding out that even winning Kody's game doesn't promise safety. The rules keep changing, and the man across from her is already eyeing his next target while asking her to help him find it. Kody Brown has turned mind games into an art, and this dinner talk is a perfect example of emotional abuse dressed up as personal conversation. Watch how he builds his mental traps. First, he tells Robyn they have something amazing right here, while at the same time questioning whether one wife will be enough for him. He's making her feel both special and not good enough, chosen and replaceable. The head game technique is straight from the playbook. He reminds her of their unique bond, making her feel important, then immediately falls with doubts about their relationship being complete. When she agrees they have something special, he says, "Why would we put that at risk?" But here's the manipulation. He's the one suggesting they risk it by adding another woman. He's creating the danger while acting like he's protecting what they have. Then comes the really nasty part. After making her feel safe about their connection, he drops the bomb. "There's something I want, maybe more than you do." When pushed, he admits he's talking about sex, basically telling his wife of 15 years that she's not meeting his needs and he's thinking about other options. The message is obvious. If you can't give me what I want, I'll find someone who can. This is the same double talk he used with Christine, Janelle, and Mary. He would tell each wife she was special while making her fight for his attention. He'd create problems, then act like the solution. He'd make them feel insecure, then offer love only if they performed well. Every woman who's ever dealt with a controlling partner will spot these tricks immediately. Robyn's answer shows she's been trained to accept this treatment. When he says he's thought about leaving her, she doesn't get angry or demand better. Instead, she says sorry and asks him to accept her as a monogamist. She's been taught to take blame for his wandering eyes and to beg for basic commitment that should be freely given. The really sick part is how Kody talks about his sexual wants. He's not discussing intimacy or connection. He's talking about physical satisfaction and looks. At 57, he's reducing potential relationships to their most shallow parts while expecting his current wife to help him search for younger, prettier options. This isn't about plural marriage beliefs or growing the family. This is about a middle-aged man's ego and sex drive being more important than everyone else's feelings. Then the talk gets even darker and Kody drops all pretense of spiritual reasons or family values. When Robyn tries to change the subject from sex, he pushes harder with brutal honesty. "I'm not kidding. My primary motivation at this stage in my life would be just how good-looking she is." This isn't a mistake or bad judgment. This is a planned admission about his real priorities. Let's understand what just happened here. A 57-year-old man sitting across from his wife of 15 years just told her that if he adds another woman to their marriage, it will be purely for sexual pleasure and physical attraction. He's not talking about compatibility, shared beliefs, or even basic human connection. He's shopping for a sex toy, and he wants Robyn's permission to do it. The nerve is incredible. This is the same man who spent decades preaching about heavenly marriage, spiritual unions, and the sacred nature of plural marriage relationships. Now he's reduced the whole idea to his personal pleasure and what looks good to him. He's basically telling Robyn that their special connection isn't special enough to keep him happy, and he needs a younger, prettier addition. When Robyn calls him out for being a pig, his response is even more telling. I know, and I don't care. I'm a guy. He's not embarrassed. He's not sorry. He's proud of his crudeness and using his gender as an excuse for treating women like replaceable objects made for his pleasure. This is toxic masculinity at its worst. The belief that men's sexual wants matter more than everyone else's dignity and emotional health. Think about the mental warfare happening right now. Kody has just told his wife that she's not good enough sexually, that he needs someone more attractive, and that he doesn't care how hurtful this sounds. He's systematically destroying her sense of security while demanding her help in finding her replacement. This isn't a talk between equal partners. This is a power move designed to keep Robyn scrambling to prove her value. The most disturbing part is how casually he delivers these verbal attacks. There's no awareness of how crushing this must be for a woman who gave up everything to be with him. No thought about how publicly embarrassing these admissions are. No recognition that he's basically telling America that his wife isn't woman enough for him anymore. He's treating her like a business partner in his next purchase rather than the woman he supposedly chose above all others. Here's what makes this whole conversation even more ridiculous. Kody Brown is 57 years old, acting like he's some young stud with uncontrollable sexual needs. Despite confusion about his birth year sometimes, Kody was born in January 1968, making him a man approaching senior citizenship who's still playing the "I can't help myself, I'm just a guy" card. Most women who've lived for 5 decades understand something important about men this age. The desperate midlife scramble to prove they're still desirable, still powerful, still the catch they think they are. Kody is showing classic signs of a man who cannot accept getting older and is willing to destroy his entire life to chase the fantasy of his younger self. Think about the math here. After 3 wives left him and he abandoned 13 children, Kody truly believes he's such an amazing prize that attractive younger women are waiting in line for the privilege of becoming his 5th wife. The delusion is staggering. This is a man with thinning hair he tries to hide with increasingly creative styling, a history of failed marriages, and a public reputation for emotional abuse and abandonment. Yet, he sits across from his current wife discussing his sexual requirements like he's running a job interview. The age factor shows something darker about Kody's pattern with wives. He has a history of losing interest in women as they approach or enter menopause. When wives can no longer fulfill his fantasy of endless youth and unlimited availability, he starts looking elsewhere. Robyn was 30 when she joined the family, young, energetic, and willing to compete for his attention. 15 years later, she's 45, dealing with the natural changes that come with raising children and managing a household. Suddenly, Kody is bored and shopping for a replacement. What's especially pathetic is his obvious attempt to frame this as some uncontrollable biological need. At 57, most men have learned to find satisfaction in deeper connections, shared experiences, and real partnership. But Kody is stuck in emotional adolescence, convinced that his sexual appetite justifies treating women as disposable objects made for his pleasure. The really sad part is how this behavior gets worse with age. Instead of growing wiser and more grateful for what he has, Kody becomes more demanding and less satisfied. Each passing year makes him more desperate to prove his desirability, more willing to hurt the people closest to him in pursuit of validation from strangers. He's not aging gracefully. He's aging like a warning story about men who refuse to develop beyond their most basic instincts. Robyn's responses in this conversation show something deeply troubling about her role in this toxic situation. When Kody makes his crude admission about wanting sex and attractiveness, she didn't walk away. She doesn't show real outrage. Instead, she nervously laughs and called him a pig with what sounds like almost like fondness. This isn't shock or disgust. This is a woman who's become dangerously comfortable with being treated as expendable. Watch her body language and verbal responses throughout this dinner scene. When Kody tells her he's fantasized about leaving her, she doesn't demand better treatment or question his commitment. She apologizes and asks if he'll accept her as a monogamist, basically begging for basic faithfulness that should be automatic in any healthy relationship. She's been conditioned to take responsibility for his wandering attention and to negotiate for scraps of devotion. But here's where Robyn's participation becomes more calculated. Notice how she tries to redirect him when his language becomes too explicit, saying, "You don't understand how you're coming across." This isn't real concern for their relationship. This is image management. She's worried about how this looks on camera, not about the devastating impact of his words on their marriage. She's become his public relations manager, trying to soften his rough edges for television while enabling his behavior in private. The children factor makes her participation even more disturbing. Robyn has elementary and middle school age kids who will eventually see their mother on national television laughing while their stepfather talks about needing another woman for sexual satisfaction. She's allowing her children to witness a masterclass in how men can treat women as interchangeable objects and how women can smile and accommodate this treatment. Remember Robyn's own admission that she's never been sure if Kody could be satisfied with one woman? She's basically saying she's always known he might need other options, yet she chose to stay and build a life with a man she doesn't trust to remain faithful. This isn't love. This is a business arrangement where she's willing to endure public humiliation for financial security and social status. The saddest part is how Robyn seems to believe she can manage the situation through negotiation and image control. She asks for guarantees about adding another wife, as if there are safe ways to bring another woman into a relationship where the husband is already announcing his dissatisfaction with his current wife. She's trying to think her way through an inherently illogical and hurtful situation, proving she's lost touch with her own worth and dignity. What we're witnessing at this dinner table isn't new behavior. It's the same devastating pattern Kody has perfected over decades of marriage. The women who escaped this dynamic, Christine, Janelle, and Mary, could probably predict every word coming out of his mouth because they've heard these exact manipulation tactics before. The only difference is that now, Robyn is the target instead of the beneficiary. Christine wrote extensively about Kody's obsession with Robyn's attractiveness when she first joined the family. She described how all the wives suddenly felt they had to compete with Robyn's looks, how Kody would openly praise her appearance while making subtle digs about everyone else's aging bodies. The trophy wife dynamic was established from day one, with Kody treating Robyn like his prize acquisition, while the other wives became the consolation prizes he had to tolerate. But here's the brutal truth about being Kody's trophy wife. There's always an expiration date. Janelle experienced this when Kody lost interest in her practical, non-nonsense approach to life. Mary discovered it when their emotional intimacy died and he found her needs inconvenient. Christine lived it when she refused to keep pretending their marriage was working and demanded better treatment. Each woman learned that Kody's version of love is entirely conditional on their ability to feed his ego and meet his constantly shifting demands. The pattern is sickeningly predictable. First, he love bombs the new target, making her feel like the most special woman in the world. Then, he uses that special status to create competition among his wives, pitting them against each other for his attention. As the favored wife ages or begins asserting her own needs, he starts withdrawing affection and creating doubt about their connection. Finally, he either discards them entirely or begins shopping for their replacement while making them complicit in the process. What makes this pattern particularly cruel is how Kody rewrites history to justify his behavior. He's already begun telling people that he was never truly attracted to his previous wives, that their marriages were mistakes, that he stayed out of duty rather than desire. Watch how he'll eventually do the same thing to Robyn, claiming he was never really satisfied with her, that she trapped him somehow, that his current pursuit of other women is actually a return to his authentic self. The Sister Wives community has been watching this cycle play out for years, and many viewers can recognize the signs before the wives themselves do. The subtle criticisms, the wandering attention, the sudden interest in spirituality or growth that conveniently requires looking outside the marriage for fulfillment. It's textbook emotional abuse disguised as religious devotion. And Robyn is just the latest victim to believe she can be the exception to Kody's pattern of abandonment. Robyn is discovering what every woman before her learned too late in Kody's world. There's no such thing as permanent status. She spent 15 years believing she had achieved the ultimate victory by outlasting the other wives and becoming his sole focus. She was the young, attractive, devoted partner who gave him everything he claimed to want. But now she's facing the harsh reality that even winning Kody's game doesn't guarantee long-term security. The trophy wife cycle is brutally predictable. When Robyn joined the family at 30, she was everything Kody craved, 11 years younger than him, willing to compete for his attention, and desperate enough to make him her entire world. She played the game perfectly, positioning herself as the understanding wife while the others struggled with jealousy and resentment. She got her reward when the other marriages imploded and she became the only wife standing. But here's what Robyn didn't understand about her victory. It was always temporary. Kody doesn't want a wife. He wants a constant stream of validation from women who see him as their ultimate prize. Once a woman settles into the security of being chosen, once she stops competing and starts expecting basic respect and fidelity, she becomes less interesting to him. The chase is over, and Kody loves for the chase. Now at 45, Robyn is experiencing what Christine, Janelle, and Mary lived through before her. She's watching her husband's attention wander, hearing him openly discuss her inadequacies, and being asked to facilitate her own replacement. The woman who once felt victorious for being chosen above the others is now being demoted to recruitment officer for her husband's next obsession. The cycle continues, and Robyn has moved from prize to stepping stone in Kody's never-ending quest for validation through conquest. This dinner conversation is giving viewers an unprecedented look into how Kody Brown actually operates when he thinks nobody important is watching. Yes, the cameras are rolling, but this is clearly a man who believes his audience will either excuse his behavior or find it entertaining rather than disturbing. What we're seeing is the real Kody, the one his children and former wives have described in private moments. Notice how comfortable he is with his crudeness. When Christine tries to soften his language by suggesting he doesn't understand how he sounds, his response is chilling. I know and I don't care. I'm a guy. This isn't accidental insensitivity. This is calculated disregard for how his words impact the woman sitting across from him. He knows exactly how devastating his admissions are, and he simply doesn't care about the emotional damage he's causing. The children have previously mentioned Robyn making comments about saving certain conversations for the cameras or controlling the family narrative for television. Yet here she is laughing nervously while her husband publicly humiliates her and announces his dissatisfaction with their marriage. Either she's lost control of the image management she once prided herself on, or she's decided that any storyline is better than no storyline when it comes to keeping those reality TV paychecks coming. What's particularly revealing is how normalized this dynamic has become between them. This isn't a one-time conversation. This is clearly an ongoing discussion about Kody's wandering attention and Robyn's attempts to manage it. She's asking for guarantees about adding another wife, like she's negotiating a business contract rather than discussing the sacred bonds of marriage. They've both reduced their relationship to a transactional arrangement where emotional intimacy has been replaced by strategic planning. The timing of these revelations is also telling. Kody spent months on red carpets telling entertainment reporters that he was perfectly happy with monogamy, that he wasn't seriously pursuing other women, that his relationship with Robyn was everything he needed. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, he was having these explicit conversations about sexual dissatisfaction and actively looking for wife number 5. The public Kody and the private Kody are completely different people, and this dinner scene proves which version is authentic. Perhaps most disturbing is how this conversation will impact their children, who are old enough to understand what their parents are discussing on national television. They'll see their mother laughing while their father talks about needing other women for sexual satisfaction. They'll watch their stepfather reduce marriage to physical attraction and sexual performance. This is the legacy Kody and Robyn are creating, teaching the next generation that love is conditional, commitment is negotiable, and women exist primarily for male satisfaction. The sister wives community is witnessing something unprecedented: the complete dismantling of any pretense that Kody Brown ever understood love, commitment, or basic human decency. For years, viewers watched him manipulate and abandon 3 wives while positioning himself as the misunderstood patriarch who just wanted to build a loving plural family. This dinner conversation has shattered that illusion entirely, revealing a man whose primary motivation has always been sexual conquest and ego validation. The reaction across social media platforms has been swift and brutal. Women who followed his family for over a decade are expressing everything from outrage to vindication. The comment sections are filled with supporters of Christine, Janelle, and Mary saying they finally understand why these women had to escape. Others are questioning how Robyn can continue defending or enabling the man who treats her with such obvious contempt on national television. What's particularly striking is how this revelation recontextualizes everything viewers thought they knew about the Brown family dynamics. Suddenly, Christine's accusations of favoritism make perfect sense. Robyn wasn't the beloved wife, she was just the newest trophy. Janelle's emotional distance becomes understandable when you realize she was married to a man who saw her as inadequate compared to his current obsession. Mary's desperate attempts to reconnect take on new meaning when viewed through the lens of competing with Kody's constantly shifting standards for female worth. The broader implications for plural marriage representation are devastating. For years, the Browns positioned themselves as examples of how polygamy could work in modern society: loving, consensual, spiritually motivated family building. This dinner conversation exposes that narrative as complete fiction. What viewers are seeing instead is a masterclass in how religious doctrine can be twisted to justify male sexual privilege and female subjugation. The questions this raises about Robyn's future are urgent and uncomfortable. How long can a woman maintain her dignity while being publicly humiliated by her husband on national television? How many more conversations about her inadequacies will she endure before reaching her breaking point? Will she follow the path of Christine, Janelle, and Mary by eventually recognizing that no amount of compliance or accommodation will ever satisfy Kody's appetite for conquest and control? Perhaps most importantly, this dinner conversation has provided every woman watching with a crystal clear example of what emotional abuse looks like when it's dressed up as honest communication. Kody's manipulation tactics, the love bombing followed by devaluation, the creation of insecurity disguised as intimacy, the sexual coercion framed as male nature, are textbook patterns that domestic violence advocates recognize immediately. The national audience is getting an education in recognizing and rejecting these toxic dynamics, potentially saving other women from similar relationships. The sister wife saga has become more than entertainment. It's become a cautionary tale about what happens when women sacrifice their worth for the illusion of being chosen by men who are fundamentally incapable of genuine love or commitment. Do you think Robyn will finally recognize what the other wives learned before her? That being Kody's favorite is just another form of being his victim? And which legal move from Christine's playbook do you think would serve Robyn best if she ever decides to reclaim her dignity? Make sure to tap like, hit subscribe, and keep those notifications on because honestly, after watching Kody reduce 15 years of marriage to his sexual requirements, something tells me the next round of Sister Wives revelations will be even more explosive than this dinner disaster.